Yeah, I mean, it's so much better when we're doing this every week, every other week.
Yeah, so I think this is good. You guys are working the kinks out and good to go.
Well, we with Andy Bay that night a couple times before I got this shit right.
I think we just wanted more to drink.
Well, I mean, that's always the case, so.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Two-Wheeled Rider podcast presented by JT Motorsports. I am your host, Mario Orsini, joined by my co-host,
Brian Boyer.
You got it good that time, and what people don't know, this is our second take because we're a little rusty at this point. So those of you tuning in, we are recording this on May 8th. It's actually going up just a little less than a week later, depending on where you're at in the country, depending on where you're at in the world. You may still be on like a shelter at home or something like that. West Virginia, we are recording. I don't know if we're essential or not, but we have started to relax some of the rules. I think within the next week or so, we'll be back to a somewhat normal thing. You know, like our great governor said, follow the effing guidelines and we'll be fine. He didn't actually say that. He actually went to, you know, whatever. If you didn't see it, if you're watching on YouTube, maybe I'll link it real quick to what he actually said. It was much worse than what I just said. But, you know, anyway, it does look like we may get back to, well, not may get back to some racing. We're going back GNCC racing. That's happening in Georgia. It's happening in South Carolina. It looks like Full Gas Enduro is going to be going down in the great state of West Virginia later this month. Looks like SXCX may be happening in West Virginia later this month. Supercross is still talking about coming back late this month. We'll see. I'm super stoked that we're going to get back to some level of normalcy, even if that means, by the way, we park our campers 10 feet apart anyway. Like, nothing's really changing here. But, and Brian and I aren't going to talk about what we've been doing on the off weekends, whether or not we're social distancing or not. Speaking of social distancing, these two guys across the table from me, I never have to worry about staying within 6 feet of them unless they're passing me and lapping me again a couple laps later. But we'll get into that here shortly. You know, I hope everybody listening to this is doing well. If you're still under lockdown, hopefully you get out of it soon. I hope everyone and their families that support this podcast, listen to this podcast, are staying healthy. And hopefully we'll see you out on the road or trail soon. So it's a Two-Wheeled Rider podcast. We got to start out with a whiskey pour. We have Russell's Reserve 10-year tonight from Wild Turkey Distillery. Jimmy Russell, I've actually met before. The guy is in his 80s. He's still the master distiller. I think now he's the co-master distiller. Because he just basically refused to retire despite the fact his son's closing in on 60 now, and his grandson is like damn near my age, who's apparently a really good distiller himself, so he'll probably take over at some point. But we've got Russell's 10-year. It's a little lower than it was on that first take. You know, cheers around the board. The two guys across the table from me, whatever they're drinking out of their cups or bottles or whatever, they're not old enough to drink, so.
More for us.
Exactly. We might have to do this more often. So, all right. So, you know, most people listen to the podcast are supporting it just by listening to it, and that is greatly appreciated. We do want to give a little shout out to some of the folks that are supporting the podcast monetarily, so we'll run down through them really quick. If you don't understand what the different levels are, that's okay. We will likely play during one of the breaks later, kind of break that down for you as to what the different levels are. So at the contributor level, Luke Harding, he's our first ever contributor. Coming to us on Patreon is Dylan. Also on Patreon is Alexander Marsh. Thank you guys so much. At the production crew level, we have Amanda Knapp from She Shall Ride. That is her handle on all the social media platforms. If you didn't catch that interview, that was episode 7 of season 1. Definitely check that out. Amanda had a lot of great behind the scenes to share with us at Supercross, and just a lot of great insight across the board. SRT AMA East Harescrambles presented by Beta on board at the production crew level. We have mentioned the fact that we want to do a live podcast with them. Now that it looks like we're getting back to racing, albeit Pennsylvania and New Jersey's rules are a little bit more strict. They do run all over the place with that series because it's normally a part of another series. So hopefully we can get with those guys here soon. That'll be a lot of fun with Kenny Held, Dave Nash, And we'll probably have Andrew Sakanikas back on.
I think you got it right there.
Yeah, no, I don't want him busting my balls anymore. But Dave will not be back on because we can't control Dave. We also have Morgan Graves on at the production crew level on Patreon. At the executive producer level, we have Jeff Hokinson. And as a one-time contributor, I don't want you to think he bought his way on the podcast, but he might have. At $5, we have Luke Ross. So anyway, guys, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, I'm going to introduce you to our guest for this evening. When Brian and I need something for our bikes, we head to JT Motorsports in Frederick, Maryland. JT's recently moved into a brand new, huge facility, conveniently located just minutes off of I-270 and I-70. Their massive showroom floor holds brand new models from Polaris, Can-Am, Kawasaki, Suzuki, Husqvarna, KTM, and now specialized e-bikes. If you haven't tried an e-bike, you have to. Those things are so much fun to ride. And for the wee little riders, check out their line of Stasic Kids bikes, which are the perfect way to get youngsters involved in riding. Their showroom floor also features a huge selection of riding gear, accessories, and other essentials to keep your machines running good and looking good. They carry some of the top brands in riding gear, including Arai and Climb. Need parts for your bike? They keep a ton of parts in stock and ship daily. Heck, you even have the option to call, email, or text your parts orders in. If you don't like working on your own bike, that's okay, because they have a full service department that will work on any make or model. Just mention the Two Wheeled Rider podcast when you call, email, text, or stop in the shop, and you'll immediately get a 10% discount on parts and accessories. Visit jtmotorsports.net or call 301-846-4318. And if you didn't write that down, don't worry. You can find it in the podcast show notes or YouTube video description along with their address. All right, let's get back to the show. All right, guys, welcome back. I am joined by the offspring of John Ross, which if you're a longtime listener of the channel, you'll recognize that name. And if you've been involved in the off-road racing community for more than a minute, you should also recognize that name. So sitting directly in front of me, I have Jake Ross. He's a start control enduro expert, multinational high point racer, currently third in his high school class, and already completed a year of college. And while he didn't want to admit it, he's also an expert suspension builder because he's worked on my suspension plenty of times, rebuilding shocks, things like that. So welcome to the show, Jake.
Good to be here.
And sitting on his left is his slightly older brother, SXCX Grand Champion, ISDE gold medalist, and dude whose T-shirt I'm currently wearing. Like, who else has their, aside from me, who else has their own T-shirt in this frame? Like, cool. Just this guy. Welcome, Luke.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so what we want to kind of go over first, and Jake, we'll start with you since you got the mic in front of you. Just give us a little bit of a brief rundown of your history, life, whatever in motorcycles.
Yeah, my dad pretty much put me on a bike as soon as I got the training wheels off. I think it was 2 years old, and didn't really start racing until later. I think I was 8 or 9. Followed the GNCCs for a couple years, and started bouncing around a little bit, but just had fun with it. And I've competed at expert level nationally a couple years, and been in the run for some championships, but never ended up following through with it. Just don't like the seriousness of the race and all in it for fun. So, yeah.
All right, cool. And Luke, give us a little bit of rundown of your history of racing and motorcycles, those sorts of things.
Yeah, well, I mean, we got into it pretty naturally. You know, our dad was a racer back in the day, and then, you know, he had the motorcycle shops, which I'm sure we'll touch on later, you know. So it was kind of natural for Jake and I to get into it. You know, started racing. I did my first race around age 7. I wasn't really a big racer when I was younger. I kind of didn't really get into it till I was later, you know, around 10, 11 years old. And then once we got into it, it was like full go, like raced pretty much every year full time for about the last 10, 11 years.
Awesome. So, you know, you mentioned kind of the motorcycle shop. So kind of want to just get from each of you, what is it? You've guys basically grew up in motorcycle shops, you know, as a kid coming to work with your dad and being around that shop. What was that experience like?
Well, it was pretty awesome, to be honest. I mean, we grew up, you know, like you said, we grew up around it. We were born into it. My dad had Shenandoah Honda, which was basically like Jake and I's little playground, you know, when we were growing up. It was awesome. It was just fun to go around that atmosphere every day, you know, being around motorcycles and being with the employees, the older guys, you know, we just had a blast with it, you know, so it was really natural, you know, for us to get going with it and just have a good time with it.
Yeah, so I imagine at a certain point, you know, you mentioned it being a playground, but eventually that playground probably turned into helping Dad out and start working there.
Oh yeah, I played for a long time there. You know, like you said, it was personal playground. But around 13 was whenever I started getting put to work. I remember first time I worked there, he paid me $5 an hour. I thought I was making bank.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I did that. I worked all summer. I saved up and bought myself an XR100. I remember, so that was the reward for that summer.
Yeah, it's a solid bike choice.
Yeah, and then in my last few years of high school at Ride on Moto, I worked my whole last year of high school there. I did the work study program, so I would just go first period in the morning.
Really, that counted as work study?
Yeah, man, it was awesome. Literally, the principal just asked for your pay stubs at the end of the week. Like, so I would literally go to one class and, you know, I was late like every day.
And then go to his playground.
So, Yep. And then go to work. And I thought it was a better deal because I was making money the whole time versus being stuck at school all day.
Yeah. Now, what about you, Jake? Talk a little bit about your experience growing up at the shop.
Well, it was really fun. I enjoyed it a lot. And, you know, by about the time I was 10 or 11, I started to enjoy working on the bikes, and I proved to be rather mechanically inclined. And so my dad started teaching me a little bit more and more, and by the time I was about 15, I mean, he had me servicing suspension, and I was, you know, I was wrenching on bikes. So the work for me was pretty interesting. I really, the mechanical side of everything fascinates me. But before that, I mean, I'd ride XR100s all around the shop, burning some ruts, and ride scooters, bicycles every day. It was a fun time. So, but it's a lot of work when it comes down to it, but at the end of it all, I love motorcycles and I loved being around it every minute. So
yeah, I think there's the balance, right? Everyone thinks, oh, it's just fun. You just have bikes and you get to ride around, but there's definitely the work part of it.
Oh yeah, the work part of it. I mean, it can burn you out. I mean, it can make you almost say at the end of the day, I hate motorcycles. I don't want to talk about them, but you always end up coming back to it, and it makes you feel good. I mean, just the feeling on a bike and the feeling of being around them, it's addictive.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a good type of addiction though, right?
So I go back all the way to the days of Shenandoah Honda at the original facility, which is, you know, not more than a half mile down the road from where the new facility was, and that facility was much smaller, and that's where I bought I think it was my second new street bike. It was a 2003 CBR 600 F4i. But I specifically remember when you guys, you know, opened up the new shop, and, you know, these two ankle biters would come out from around the counter, and that was back when I was performing magic shows all the time. And these two a-holes would put me on the spot. I'm just coming in to pick up like a set of brake pads or some oil. Show me a magic trick. Show me a magic trick. And they were just a pain in the butt. You know, I'm probably in my 20s, and they're like 7, 8 years old. Now, at this point, you know, they're grown up. I'm even older, and now they just destroy me out on the track, off-road still. Not to say you guys probably can't ride on road. Who the heck knows? But that's what like. I've known these guys for, you know, we're probably going back, you know, 15 years at this point.
Yeah, but that whole magic trick thing that day, you're being a dick.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'd get off work because I still had a day job at that point, and it was like, show me a trick. I'm like, I just came in here to pick up some oil. That's all I want
right now. Let's see a trick.
It never stops.
No, it doesn't. That's anyway. While we're in the nostalgia part of it, you know, I feel like all of us at some point in time have like some old bike that we remember, or maybe it's current bike that we have that, you know, if you were to tell someone, hey, this was my favorite bike I ever owned, they'd kind of look at you cross-eyed and like, really? Like, I've known some bikes you've owned. Well, you know, you guys looking back on it, the fact that you've been riding now for 15 plus years, each of you, is there some bike that sticks out to you in your mind where you're like, man, I had a lot of fun on that, or there's a lot of great memories with that bike?
I'd say my my CRF 150R that I raced in 2014. My dad and I put a lot of work into that bike to make it run well, and I just had a pretty good span on that thing. I raced the ECAs that year, popped around a couple GNCCs, national enduros and stuff. And I rode pretty well on it. I won two ECA championships actually that year. I won a Super Mini 1213 and a schoolboy championship. I always was trying to run for the morning overalls. So that was probably one of my favorite bikes. We ended up, my last race on it, we ended up tricking it out, and we did some cool stuff with the engine. And I took that thing to probably my favorite race of all time, the Blue Diamond Harescramble, best race ever. And I moved up to the afternoon race, and I raced 200B on a small bike, and I ended up getting the high point B, the overall B at that day, and winning. So that was actually a really fun experience, and I had so much fun on that bike. So many good memories.
So, quick question for you before I ask Luke about his Honda or KTM.
It really depends. I mean, at this point, I'm so used to the KTMs for the big bikes. I mean, they all have different feels, and I haven't really got a chance to ride too many Honda big bikes. The last time I really spent much time on it was when I'd hop on Luke's CRF 250s or CR 125s, and I liked those. I had a lot of fun on them, but at this point, I'm so used to KTMs and how they feel, how they handle, that it's just like I get on one and I'm comfortable. So, and I have mine pretty dialed. So,
all right, fair enough. Luke, any bike that stands out in your mind back in the history of riding?
Yeah, I'm going to say the one that pops up to mind, the very first one, was the '07 CR 125. My dad got me off Craigslist back in the day. That was probably
Wait. Your dad owns a Honda dealership, and he goes and buys you a Honda off of Craigslist.
They stopped making the two strokes in '07, so
Okay.
yeah, I had to. But that bike was awesome. I mean, that was I remember hopping on that when I was like 12 years old, and I fell in love instantly. I raced that thing like the whole next year. Like, I was still going back and forth between my Honda 150 when I was racing Super Mini at the GNCCs to the CR 125, and I didn't even make it through the rest of the year on my Super Mini because I was having so much fun on that 125. Shoot, I moved up to the afternoon class, which was probably one of the worst decisions I ever made. But still, that's how much I love that bike. And granted, like Jake said, the Honda 150s my dad built were awesome too. Like, they were badass. So that's saying a lot for how much I actually like that bike.
Jake, do you have something you want to chime in there?
yeah, so my dad never bought us new bikes. That was always kind of the thing. He grew up riding used stuff, and you get something and you put some work into it, and it makes you value it a little bit more and makes you enjoy the experience a little bit more. So I didn't end up getting my first new bike until I was maybe 14 years old, and that was when the KTM shop first opened up. I got a KTM 150. So yeah, we never rode new bikes when we were growing up.
Yeah, to chime in on that, he hit it on the nail there. I remember my RM85 that I had. He brought it,
which, by the way, hasn't changed since you owned an RM85.
No,
it's exactly the same.
02 RM85. My dad bought for $350 all, and it was a top end, and that was my race bike for the whole 2011 season, I believe. And like Jake said, my first bike since my 50 was when we had our 50s brand new when we were little kids was 2013 CRF 150R.
I take that back. I did get a new bike when I was on KX65s. My dad actually found a deal. It was a crate damaged leftover. So, of course, it was all banged up. Plastic was all scratched up. But I got too big over the winter to race it. So I moved up to, I think I had like an 04 RM85. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was the same deal with the Honda. My dad bought me a 2012 or 2008, one of the two, off of friend of ours for a practice bike, and that ended up being my race bike at the beginning of the year. I raced the 13 two races, and then I stopped wanting to ride them and outgrew them, so I gave it to Jake. That was his race bike that next year.
All right, so we mentioned your dad earlier, and for those that don't know, like the guy is a wealth of knowledge and information, and there's multiple reasons for that. He's owned a couple of different dealerships. He's worked with plenty of professional racers. I don't know if I can say this. Like, he's even sent stuff up to the factory that then they've made changes to the bikes, and whether it's technical bulletins, service bulletins, like ways to improve them. Jake, we'll start out with you since the microphone's in front of your face. What's it like and I can probably even throw in a little bit of this. What's it like to grow up as the son of John Ross?
It's intense. I mean, overall, he's a pretty intense guy. I think anyone meets him in the first 5 minutes sees that he's intense. But I mean, honestly, I don't know if I could, if I'd even ever think about having another father. He is probably one of the greatest men I'll ever meet. I mean, he is. I look up to him and I strive to be like him every day. I mean, I genuinely love the guy. He puts forth so much effort for everyone, and he just cares about the littlest things for the littlest people, and so yeah, he gives us hell a lot. I mean, a lot, and he gives us hell in front of people a lot. Teach us a little humility, and but being around him in public, a lot of people expect you to kind of know just as much as he does, and that can be a bit overwhelming at first, and that's why he almost makes you pick up on some stuff and make sure you know stuff. He likes to keep you on your toes and keep you informed, and I have no complaints about it. I love I love it. He's taught us so much, and he's taught me so much about motorcycles and just about life in general. I mean, he's seen a lot of stuff. I'll say he's a really smart guy. He thinks a lot. He thinks about stuff really in depth, and it's awesome having him as a father. I mean, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the entire world.
Yeah, so you're right. He is intense. He does keep you on your toes. If anybody visits my Facebook page from time to time, they'll see where he comes on and busts my balls about stuff. And somebody from the outside may read that and go, "Wow, that guy's being really hateful." But you just don't know John at that point, if that's what you think. Like, he's saying things. I mean, yeah, he is trying to get under your skin from time to time. But if he's not commenting on something or not speaking to you, then you're not a friend of his. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And you touched on something where he helps out. He'll help out top-level racers. He'll help out some guy that just happened to buy a motorcycle. And I've seen the amount of time he spends with people to make sure that they're properly set up, that they have the best setup, the best bike, everything's tuned for them and their riding ability and their riding skill. He won't necessarily set up, for some guy that can barely ride. He's not going to set it up as a race bike. He's going to set it up so it handles for them and it works for them. And I've witnessed that time and time again.
Yeah, a lot of the people that, they'll go out and buy a new bike, a trail rider or something, and they'll be reading online or seeing what the pros are running, and that's just, it's not the right stuff for them. I mean, when you're an entry-level rider, even a expert-level trail rider, your setup versus, say, the top-level enduro or GNCC racers is going to be entirely different. So my dad really gets down to personal preference and setting stuff up for you. I mean, setting stuff up for your skill level, for and he doesn't just, it's not like a copy machine, it's not like he's taking the same settings for everyone and applying them. He's making something or looking to find stuff that benefits you personally. So
I've seen where he's made changes, and then he'll go out and follow you around we'll pick out some sort of test loop or whatever, and he'll follow you around, and he knows how you're riding the bike better than you are. And, whether it's a couple of clickers, there's a couple of adjustments here, or he just recognizes you need something major done different to the bike, he's able to pick all that stuff out.
Yeah, I mean, he was an expert level rider himself. He rode the ISD back in 1999, and he was a top competitor in the ECA Enduros in the 90s, and so he knows his stuff. I mean, he's pretty well read on it, and if he doesn't know something, you won't catch him again not knowing it. I mean, you will not catch him a second time slipping up. So he makes sure he knows what he's talking about, and he really just genuinely loves helping people.
Yeah, and I think that's so true. I mean, there's been more times than I can count that he's helped out, but I think it's not only having that knowledge, it's having the passion and giving so much time to a person to really help them out individually.
Well, I mean, we've also seen like he's served as race officials at races. Like, he's willing to help out in any way possible. I've seen him spend time with C-level riders, B-level riders, A-level riders, people that barely know how to start a motorcycle. It really doesn't.
Oh yeah,
matter.
I've seen him covered in mud, pulling people out of the. No one else is lending a hand. He'll jump right in there and.
Is that a shot at me right now? I feel like
everyone's looking at you, Mario.
Well, no, it's because this guy pointed out the race line that I ended up in the creek.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
All right,
Still laugh at that one.
Listen, that was one of the greatest photo ops because I waited around for like 25 minutes till a four-wheeler could pull me out. So
Dude,
you're
I
watching
did
it
feel
on
bad
YouTube.
about that, though. I'm not gonna lie.
I will say, just
Like-
in Luke's defense, because I did call him out. I was like, he's the one that pointed out this line. Fortunately for him, there was a Snapchat video like 2 minutes earlier where that was the right line.
Yeah,
The
for people
bottom
that
went
don't
out
know.
of that, and yeah, it took.
Yeah,
me
that
out
was the
along
Hangover
with
Hare
it.
Scramble a few years ago up at Budds Creek. That place is like a bottomless pit when it rains. It's insane.
I will say though, it did kind of benefit me a little bit, only because I was so far behind. I got to see where everyone else was stuck in the mud and take other lines to get.
Yeah,
through.
that race was crazy. That was insane how muddy that race was.
So, Luke, anything you want to add to that? Growing up the son of John Ross.
Yeah, I guess I'll do my take on it. You know, he is definitely, without a doubt, probably one of the smartest guys I've ever met about motorcycles, and that says a lot. You know, without his progression and without certain things that he's come up with over the years with the bikes, we probably, both Jake and I, probably wouldn't have progressed as far and as fast as we did. Like I said, we just liked riding when we were little kids. We didn't want to race or anything like that. So when we started taking racing more serious, that's when he started taking it more serious and started building us, you know, top level bikes, started building us the tools that we needed to succeed and be successful where we wanted to. You know, when our heart was in it and our desire was in it, that's when he wanted to help us out and, you know, make us stronger and make us better. So yeah, it's crazy the stuff he knows about bikes. Like you said, you guys can both attest to it. You know, he's helped you guys out with certain things. Every time we go over and you talk about him doing a full 180 on your 350 every single time, I swear I can't hear enough of that whenever you talk about what he did to your bike.
Yeah,
and
it's
set
just
you up.
Yeah, you chase suspension. You know, when you're finding that comfort zone, it's so important. When you find it, you just know, and it's. Yeah, what he did to the suspension, it just immediately you're on it and just it clicked and you're like, I'm just comfortable.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I said, I probably wouldn't be as far along as I have. I mean, the gist of it is like he's probably, I know this is a bold statement, he's probably forgotten more about bikes than most people know, which is, I mean that in all honesty. The dude is insane when it comes to the stuff he knows and the stuff he recommends to bikes. You know, he definitely knows his stuff for sure.
Absolutely. So I think that kind of brings us into the next question. I think to attest how much he knows, he's been able to sponsor some of the top riders. Some of the top riders have come looking for, you know, his knowledge. So talk about some of those riders that you got to ride with, some of that experience. I know Thad Duvall came out to the Boyer Farm and signed a shirt for my son and got to ride with him. And I think that was probably just a cool experience that you guys got to meet some of the top level riders that the kids look up to.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the crazy thing. When that deal all came together, you know, we were Luke and Noah's age whenever that happened, you know, because I believe that it was my dad and Eric Nykamp from Off-Road Champions. Eric was the main, you know, I guess you could say the brains behind that idea. He was the one that saw Thad didn't have a ride, and him and my dad were pretty close over the years with some of the stuff they did together and some of the collaborations they had. And he knew my dad was, you know, the Honda guy. So he reached out to Thad, and next thing you know, Thad's riding for Shendo Honda, running the full GNCC series, and that was awesome, you know. I was at that age, you know, I was probably 11, 12 years old whenever that happened. You know, I was super intimidated by pros up to that point, and, you know, like every kid is, you know, completely starstruck, you know, by your heroes and certain guys. And, you know, that opened up a lot of cool opportunities because I was able to meet a lot of cool people and a lot of people that I never would have thought to meet. I felt like a factory rider because I had the same graphics on my bike, and it was awesome. Stu Baylor, he helped Stu out a lot. Stu was having some issues with his new KTMs. You know, obviously he gets some support from KTM, but at the time he was kind of on his own deal, like more privateer based, and nobody could figure out this issue with his bike. It ended up being an oiling issue, and my dad was the first one to figure it out, and since then they've kind of had a pretty good bond together, and got to do a lot of cool things with Stu as well. The 17 Sprint Enduro Championship bike, that was my dad's bike that he built for him. So a lot of cool pros. You know, Andrew DeLong helped Andrew go over to Europe a few years ago. It's just all kinds of cool people. You know, the list goes on and on. There's even more than that, but that's just named a few.
Yeah, I remember walking in the shop one night, and I think Stu and was it Stu and Liam that stopped by? I don't remember, but they just stopped by and picked up a couple of bikes, and they were gonna go ride and throw them in the back of the pickup truck and took off. And there's been a few times, maybe I can talk about this now, I still won't name specifics, where I've walked into the back of the shop and there's been factory motorcycles in the back of Ride on Moto that I'm told, put your camera away and don't say anything. So I won't say anything other than I've seen the top level bikes back there. So what Luke's talking about, you know, that's 100% legit. Jake, before you start talking, we should say, this is the second podcast in a row we've had a dog in the room. Last time we had Winona. This time we got Buddy. Buddy's on the mend right now. I've known Buddy for, basically his entire life. He seems to be getting a little bit better. So if you see him walking around on camera, that's what's going on. You just had to take him to the vet earlier, but hopefully Buddy's going to be pretty good. Maybe we'll get Jenny on camera at some point. Anybody that's been out to any sort of hare scramble in the East Coast has probably met both Buddy and Jenny. But
yeah, you probably just have to do a Buddy and Jenny episode together.
Yeah.
That would be entertaining. So, Jake, what do you want to share with us about, your time being with your dad and, the support he's provided to some of the factory guys, maybe some of the stuff Luke hasn't talked about?
It's honestly incredibly surreal because you're surrounded by these people that you just see in the videos growing up or on TV, and it's neat that you can almost call them friends. Like, I'd say Stuart Baylor is probably a family friend. Like he and my dad talk pretty frequently. I think, in the relationship between us, Stuart enjoys our company. I think I enjoy being around Stuart. He'll bust your balls a little bit. He's a tough character too, and that's probably why he and my dad get along so well. Is they're both tough characters. So.
They both have thick skin, so they can take the ripping.
And Stuart's invited us down to his house before, so we've stayed there for weeks and rode, and it's a lot of fun being around those guys because when you're down at Stuart's, you're not just riding with Stuart and hanging out with Stuart. I mean, I've been down there and ridden with some top names. One time when I was staying down there, Johnny Gerard was down there. Of course, Johnny is current XC2 top 3 contender right now at the GNCC, and Liam Draper. And of course, Luke was bringing up Andrew DeLong. My dad has some friends in Europe. The Beta Buono team is one of his close friends. It's run by Jarno Buono, and we went over and watched the final round of the World Enduro Championship in Moine, France in 2011. And Andrew was over there just doing one round. I think he had done pretty well at GNCCs most of the year. He was doing his own thing, riding a privateer KTM, and he was over there riding for Jarno for a round, and it was cool just hanging out with Andrew. We were all Americans, and so after that, we've stayed in touch with Andrew and stayed pretty close. I mean, anytime I see Andrew, it's a good time, and we've ridden with him. So it's really cool just being around the scene and being around the professionals because they inspire you and they kind of light that up under you to go out and ride and to be your best as a rider. So,
all right, so you guys named all some pros, and we'll just start with Jake since the mic's in front of him. Who's your? And when I say pro, it doesn't have to be pro. It can be any sort of name rider. Who's your favorite person to not necessarily just ride with, like hang out with?
To hang out with, definitely Stuart. I mean, I've been on some cool adventures with him. We'll keep those off mic, but I've been on some cool adventures with him. He's always a really interesting character to be around, and the friends that I've made surrounding him within his circle. And then, I mean, just to watch ride, I really enjoy watching a lot of the World Enduro riders. Those guys, I really like studying their cornering and their just technique in general. Right now, probably my favorite rider to watch is, I'd have to say, Luke Leroux he's pretty good to watch, and of course Joseph Garcia, he's an incredible rider. So I really enjoy watching and studying the techniques of the European riders. So Brad Freeman, he's incredibly talented. Steve Holcomb, he's he's awesome to watch. So I really enjoy watching the European racing, and being, having the opportunities to go over to Europe and watch that is really interested me. And one day I want to run a world round just for fun and get the experience. So those guys are probably my favorite to watch and just favorite riders. But as for American riders, just to be around, I mean, I'd say Stewart. He's just a genuinely good guy.
All right, Luke, same question to you. Who's and again, it could be your favorite to hang out with, favorite to watch ride, whatever the case may be. But what name are you going to throw out there?
Oh, I mean, without a doubt, Stu. I mean, like Jake said, we've seen some crazy stuff that we probably can't even mention on this podcast. Save that for another time off mic. Andrew DeLong's an awesome dude. Like, so we've hung out with him a lot. Style wise, that's a tough one. I mean, I grew up probably the main one, like Jake said, a lot of the Euros. Miko Ahola was he was the main guy. My dad helped him out, with him and the Honda Italian world team. My dad helped them a lot whenever he was with the Shendo Honda. So I really enjoyed watching Miko ride, before he passed away. So yeah, those guys, they're awesome.
So I know you both mentioned Stu, and some of the stories probably can't be shared, but there's got to be something you can give the audience. Tell us about a story that you can say on mic.
It's not going to get anyone arrested.
I'll say the one. I'm sure Jake's probably got another good one. Probably the best one that I can share on here would be the trip we made over our Christmas break when we were still in high school. Went down there, spent a long week down there, stayed for New Year's, and that New Year's party was insane. Stu was having a good old time that night. They had a Clemson game on that night. Of course, they're South Carolina, so they're big Clemson fans. They were getting rowdy over that, and then the fireworks got busted out, and everybody started shooting fireworks at each other. Stu just wanted people to shoot him with fireworks. He didn't care, so it was like going out, and they would just kept shooting Stu with fireworks until finally they hit him one good time and freaking destroyed the side of his neck. Plenty of people got hit with fireworks that night. It was insane, But so that's probably one of my favorite ones that I can share on air. Of course, there's other ones, but Jake's probably got a good one too.
Jake, you got one you want to share with the audience?
Honestly, just something funny I'd have to say is when we were at ISD in 2016, the entire, we were hanging around there because usually the trophy riders leave fairly early compared to the club guys and just the people that are helping with the Team USA. So we were there working on Luke's bike or just tinkering with some stuff. Can't exactly remember. But the trophy team left Stewart because he was there talking to some people, and we were the only ones that were offering him a ride home. So that was just something pretty funny, I think, something memorable. So riding back with Stewart, eating chocolate croissants in the back seat. So yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, he seems like just somebody that you would want to hang out with. Some of the factory riders, they seem so untouchable in a way. He just seems like a buddy that you can
you
just
mean
drink a beer
stiff and corporate?
Exactly. He's just real.
Well, on the surface, a lot of them, there are a few that I've never really talked to or met, and I'm sure they're great guys, but on the surface, a lot of them do seem like that. But, I mean, a good bit of them are pretty down to earth, and they're just regular guys. They could be sitting here in this room, shooting shit.
I would imagine they are. It's just that there's a lot of money behind those guys. There's contracts riding on it. They probably have clauses in there that if you're detrimental to the brand, they can you at any time, which happened recently to someone you guys have mentioned. But I would imagine away from the mics, if you're not recording anything, like most dirt bike guys, most motors, they're just normal dudes.
Yeah, I mean, I think social media also has a huge part. I mean, I'm not really a huge social media guy when it comes to
because last time you set up an Instagram account, James Stewart shut you down.
Yeah, so yeah, the fake JS7. But no, I'm just not a huge social media guy in general. Like I feel like it's more
says the guy that has me ride bitch on his dirt bike to come out and film him for Instagram.
I was
videos.
a little kid back then, all right?
That was like last year.
2 years ago. 2 years ago. I matured, all right? I've matured. But no, I just, not anymore, really. I mean, it got to the point where I've seen a lot of this stuff's fueled by narcissism, and a lot of the stuff on Instagram, like these pro guys, it's it's not really them. And I really see a lot of social media as, it's not a lot of people showing them. And you two are an exception. I mean, you two are some of the most real people I've seen on social media. Mario, I mean, he'll he talks as if he's talking to you in person. So he's one of the people that I enjoy, like, seeing what he has to post. And I like seeing, Brian showing you. His kids do some pretty cool stuff. I mean, I love watching Case ride that Stasic till he can't anymore.
It's crazy.
So, watching them, especially watching them grow up, it's, like, cool seeing that lens into them, because I don't get to see them a whole bunch, or, and it's cool seeing that and people I'm close to. But, a lot of the racing side of social media has just become so intense, and, who's hitting, who looks the fastest in video, and, the most intimidating. And I don't know, it just kind of turned me off from it a little while. So take some breaks here every now and then.
Yeah, it can definitely be fake. I think some people do it for the show, where other people are just kind of just showing their life to.
I mean, listen, we were down in Costa Rica. I showed where I stalled that bike out on that hill and tumbled my ass back down. Like, I'm not the greatest off-road rider, and I want to make sure that, one, I'm not misrepresenting myself I can edit anything together and make myself look good, just like I could anybody sitting around here. Like, I can make anybody look excellent.
10 times fast forward.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we can speed that stuff up, but I'm a normal dude. I don't have any special skills off-road, and I want people to recognize that if you go do a ride like we did, using this example in Costa Rica, you don't have to be the greatest rider, but you can still have fun and you can still complete the ride. And I think that's important. Like you're talking about, you shoot 10 clips of the same section, you're picking the best clip.
Yeah, of course. But the only time I would really post a video of me on my motorcycle now is just like, hey, check out this badass video of me riding a bike. Like, I love it, like, I want to share with you guys
how much fun it is.
Yeah, how much fun I have.
Passion for two wheels.
Like the last video I probably posted me riding was back in November, and it was just me and my, one of my best friends, Henry Smansky. We went in the morning, we cut in a brand new trail, and then all afternoon until dark, we rode it, just battling back and forth, hitting each other on hill climbs and stuff. So it's just like anything I think is really cool or I'm really passionate about, I like to share with everyone else. And that's more how I feel like it should be, rather than, and I know you guys have touched on this in past episodes, is the hook it. I really feel like that has a big influence on social media and making everyone feel like they're, that professional level now. So
it does. And I want to be fair to Hook It. So those guys reached out to me directly after Brian and I discussed them at one point. This was prior to the whole pandemic. They have offered to get with Brian and I and talk about how to better set up the accounts, and also come on the podcast to answer questions and stuff. They are, to give them some credit, the fact that they even reached out, because that video was sent to them by folks going, hey, this was said, is it true? And they didn't come back and say, you guys are disparaging our name or anything. They said, hey, we want to work to make it better. So good for them. We're going to give them that opportunity, and we'll have them on the podcast at some point. But I do think you're right, where we've started to attach a number, and whether that number is number of views or number of interactions, like, it's a dopamine fix. How many likes can I get? How many this and that?
It almost feels like, all right, this is what you're worth. So I posted a video, and it's like, gets over 1,000 views. It's like, man, I'm pretty cool, like it makes you feel good. But you post something, doesn't get a lot of views, it's like, I guess not as many people care. But at some point I just stopped caring about that, and you post it for the passion. You post it for people to see how cool stuff is, and that's awesome that the Hook It guys stepped up like that. And I'm not trashing the program at all.
No,
I think it's an incredible opportunity. It's it's not like anything else. But for me, being through the dealerships and growing up around dealerships, the Hook It program it's tough, because they were giving out discounts better than what we would pay at dealer cost. So it was incredibly tough. I mean, like, I couldn't even price match sometimes what people would get on their Hook It deals, and I'd try to help people out as much as possible. And we, through Ride on Moto, we had a good race program going where, anyone that we'd kind of give them graphics for the bike, and it is, a little bit of our promotion, but at the same time, we'd give the people a deal, because, they shout us out. They really appreciated the customer service and the steps that we took to be great. But sometimes at the end of the day, people were getting way better deals off of Hook It than we could even offer through dealer cost. So
Yeah, I think that's challenging. So maybe kind of touch on that a little bit more. I think you guys grew up in the the moto industry, and there are some of those challenges. So is this something that you see kind of staying in, or are some of those challenges something that you want to go career wise into another field?
First off, we got the mic hog over here.
No, but I mean, so to be fair, it would be nice if we had 4 mics. We're not quite there yet. But Jake's had some good stuff to say.
Yeah,
but
for
Luke,
sure.
We'll give you the floor
I'm
at
just
this
giving
point.
I'm just giving him a hard.
Or maybe not.
there, Luke, it's all yours. All right, take over, man.
It's the brother rivalry thing, So what was the question? It was about.
Oh, really? This is why Jake's been on the mic the entire time. No, it's the question is, you guys grew up in the motorcycle industry, and not necessarily from a race standpoint, because I think that's in your blood.
Yeah.
Is the motorcycle industry something you guys want to stay in to earn money, or are you looking at something? Because I know you're in college. You've already completed some college. What is it you guys are wanting to do after this, and kind of why?
Yeah, well, when I was younger, that was all I wanted to do. I just wanted to be around motorcycles and be in the industry. Obviously that's changed a little bit over the years. I've seen the good, I've seen the bad. It just got, after a while, it got a little bit, it started being more of a job and a hassle than it started being like fun and stuff. So I basically, as much as I love it, like it became a job. I mean, that's what it was. It was our work. That's what we did for a living. But after a while, you do it for so long, you just start to get burned out. Like I was saying, there would be somebody, like we did a lot of deliveries and stuff, between both Shendo, Honda, and Ride on Moto, because sometimes we'd be going to a race, that somebody was going the same race as us, or somebody, like a friend of a friend was going to the same race. And so then it turned into like we'd have to deliver stuff, where most of us that are going to races or, want to go to the races, you want to get out of here at a certain time, you want to get there. Everybody's always so antsy to get there, after a long week at work or whatever. So sometimes you go, this person needs something, 10 minutes before you're trying to leave. And then it's, another hour or 2 hours before you end up getting to get out of there. It's already enough to try to remember everything to bring to the races. And, but that's my rant about that. But anyway.
So what do you want to be when you grow up?
That's a tough question. Right now I'm just
general studies
doing I'm doing the business administration program at the community college, and then when I transfer JMU next year, I'm looking into the cybersecurity computer business field. We've touched on that a little bit, because that's what Mario. Of course, you work in that field, and we've had a lot of conversations about that, and that's where I'm going towards right now. I've also been, recently for the past few months doing roofing for a friend of mine and seen a lot of money in that. So,
listen, there's a lot of money in the trades.
Yeah.
You get into the cleared environment working in cybersecurity, there's a lot of money in that too.
Exactly.
You just decide, do you want to be inside? Do you want to be outside?
Exactly. That's what it comes down to.
But I will say what he was discussing there about, delivering bikes and stuff. There's been a couple of times where John's thrown a bike into my trailer on the back of my truck.
Yeah.
You're going to such and such race, right? And listen, I want to help out my local dealership anywhere I can. And, that's not to say JT should be calling me up all the time to deliver bikes, but if I got room in my truck,
more power to you. That bike would be just going home to.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I might have to put some test laps on that bike first. Just make sure it works. But anyway, Jake, over to you. Same question. You're getting ready to finish up high school here soon. You'll be moving on to college. Do you want to stay in the motors? And I get that you guys are always going to race at some level. Do you want to stick in the motorcycle industry in some way, or what's your passion? What do you kind of want to go after?
It was always a thought in the back of my head that was, stay in the motorcycle business, and especially, if the dealerships were still afloat, I mean, it'd probably be, maybe one day I'm going to run this thing after I graduate college. But my dad always, he drilled into me from the time that I understood understood him was you're going to college. And he and my mother, my were both college graduates. My father has his MBA, and he just emphasized education for us through even so many years while we were racing. I mean, I was always held to a standard that was a fairly high standard, and I ended up excelling in school and enjoying it. And so with Virginia, the post-education program is phenomenal. I mean, so we can attend community college for a year or two, and I have done a ton of dual enrolled credits through high school, and it's been a lot of work trying to balance that, racing, working, and it's great. You can transfer to a public in-state university under a GPA agreement, and so I'm about to starting over summer, I'm going to start taking courses at the community college, and with hopes to transfer. And I'm still, like Luke, undecided. There's so many things that interest me, and there's so many areas of study that I enjoy, so it was hard. Like I always enjoyed school and just enjoyed studying everything. So it's hard, like narrowing down,
Well, you got a couple of years to do that. You can stay in the, hit all your general studies things, all your not prerequisites, but all the basic general things you have to hit. And then you can move over to your specialized, whatever it is you want to do at that point.
Yeah, well, another positive thing is going the 2-year, first before you transfer. You can live at home, and I can still race my dirt bike. So
yeah, being close to that dirt bike. Yeah,
I mean, so to be fair, I went off to a 4-year college, and I guess it was at the end of the first year, I was like, oh, I got to ride again. So I went out and bought a street bike, and then I bought a new street bike every year after that. I had to go ride. Now, I wasn't racing back then like you guys were. I didn't start racing off-road till just a few years ago. I started road racing after college when I actually had a job and had money to pay for those sorts of things. But it is nice to be able to live at home and to be able to have at least some level of normalcy. Also, listen, I don't know what your all's college experience is going to be like. I was normally on a Sunday morning in no fashion or way to go race a motorcycle, because despite all the fact that I drank so much before, I was still dehydrated the next day. I would have never finished a race. So
yeah, I think it's I know it's in the back of both Luke and my heads, is that at some point soon we're gonna have to kind of give up the life that we live now and move into that college lifestyle. And that's a thought that I keep repressing and not really wanting to think about. But
at the same time, it's a short term thing. Like Brian and I are sitting here much older than you guys are. We have to work, full time. And I say 9 to 5s. They're not 9 to 5s. We're putting in if you want to be successful, you're putting in far more hours than that. But fortunately, because of that, we have the additional funds to continue to do this, not just for ourselves, but for our kids. And we still find the free time to go out and have a great time on two wheels. So there is a payoff at the end.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. Like Jake said, I know it's getting even closer for me because I'm about finished up with my associate's degree. So as soon as I do that, I got to look into the next step. So it's a little.
I just find it disappointing you're going to a school whose colors are purple and gold. It's just me. Someone's going to be offended by that because it's 2020, but I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break because we need one, and we need to plug how you can support this channel. When we get back, we'll finish up our interview with Jake and Luke, so we'll be back in just a few minutes. All right, we're back from that commercial break, and Luke, I want to throw it out there too. I mean, we've touched, not just in this episode, but specifically in this podcast, we've covered a lot of off-road racing because Brian doesn't understand anything about on-road racing like I do.
What's that?
Yeah, exactly. Or on-road riding for that matter, though you've done a little bit.
Wait, they race those things on the road? Or
asphalt tracks, whatever. It's called road racing. But back in the Shenandoah Honda days, at least, and even in the Ride on Moto days, and there was a video of, I think it was mostly Jake and me doing an unboxing of a 790. You guys have sponsored, when I say you guys, the family dealership, however you want to look at it. John will probably take full credit for it, but have sponsored some riders in the past. I want to touch on the road racing just a little bit because I've followed it from a club level or local level, whatever you want to call it, to a national level. Obviously, people that have listened to this podcast or have followed me on YouTube know I'm a diehard MotoGP fan. World Superbike, but talk a little bit about, especially the Shenandoah Honda days and even up to the Ride on Moto days, about some of the races your dad has either sponsored or helped out in the past.
Well, it was really cool back in the day. I remember going out to Summit because that's the big one locally here, Summit Raceway in West Virginia here. I remember
It's West by God.
Yeah, West by God.
There you go.
Can't miss that. Tim Beemansterfer was the big one. He was that dude.
Listen, I love Tim. Literally the big one.
Literally the big one. 6'4", 250 plus pounds. It's the opposite build you would expect to be as fast of a road racer as Tim was. And then it was cool. We had one of our employees, Dave DeWolf. He was doing he just hopped into it randomly, decided to do it.
Dave was pretty fast on two wheels too.
Yeah, our friend Jason Palmer. So that was cool going to Summit. I was young. It was probably, I remember being like 6, 7 years old going out to Summit. And those were the main guys we would watch race because we would just enjoy it. We did a lot, the supermoto stuff. I remember when we were younger, Dad would take it. We went to these, I don't even remember. It was just these abandoned warehouses, and he threw scooter tires on our 50s, and we'd go ride supermoto with everybody on their tricked out 150Fs, and it was awesome. So that was cool, going out there. And then in the Ride on Moto days, we helped Scooter out. Most people know Scooter Jones.
That dude had a wicked crash, not on one of Ural's bikes, I don't think, but a couple of years ago in a Moto America race. But he's super fast.
Yeah, Scooter's insane. We built a custom 790 for him. That thing was pretty.
Was that the bike
legit.
you and I unboxed, or was that a different one?
We unboxed the 790R together, but so the premise behind the build was taking a 790R KTM 790R Duke and turning it into a road race bike. And with the help of Todd Crenshaw, one of my dad's former employees.
Hot Rod Todd,
yeah.
Dude,
Todd,
super fast on a cart.
Yeah. Todd did does a lot of go-kart racing, and he kind of was good at working with the fiberglass and the body and everything. So Todd did a lot of the body work for that thing and making it, while my dad worked on the suspension. And I think Scooter had an Olin sponsorship, so we did some Olins on that.
Drop in on the forks on that, I think.
And I actually think we did a shock. I think there was a shock too.
So.
And so my dad was working with, they were kind of trying to strip that thing down and make it into a road race bike. And, it had a Kropovich exhaust, and, it was a pretty wicked sounding bike. I mean,
and it's out there hunting down SV650s. And I love SV650s. They ain't got nothing on that 790.
Oh, that thing was, it was a wicked bike for sure. I mean, it'd light up the tires like, like nothing. So I really enjoyed, kind of being in the backside observing that bike build. So, because the really cool race bike builds always fascinated me, and trying to make something that's stock just go the next level. And something we've done is using a lot of stock components to do that, which is it's kind of a couple little tricks, and not going to disclose too much, keep our secrets, but it's something we love doing, and I love being around.
Didn't Scooter win a championship on that thing?
I'm not quite sure.
I'll have to go back and look at the I know he put up some top-notch results. I want to say he won either maybe a CCS or weird title on it.
I know the Memorial Day race that they always have out at Summit. I went out that weekend to go watch him. Dude, he was ripping that thing. He was so fast on that thing. It was crazy.
He's crazy fast. And the thing about you've never met Scooter before, have you?
Nope.
I first met him. We were down at the Moto America race when they were running it conjointly with the MotoGP race down at Circuit of the Americas. And I think I saw Gokenair down there, who's the general manager up at Timbrook Honda now, and used to be over at the Harley dealer. And I used to race, not against Jeff. He was an expert class, but he He used to race on a Buell when he worked at the Groves Harley Davidson. And I saw Jeff down there. I was like, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, well, I'm crew chief or whatever for Scooter. And then I met some other folks. And that was the first time I met him. I don't remember what his results were there, but I've kind of followed him since then. And not only does he ride on road.
Yeah, he can ride moto, too.
He rides moto, too.
Some knobbies thrown in there.
Yeah, he rode mini bikes. He was a really good mini bike rider. I think went to Loretta's, put in some good results. That was around the Pastrana era, back when Pastrana was about his age. I think 14 maybe, 13, 14. And Scooter was one of the top youth riders in America, and he still, gets on a bike and he can lay it down.
Scooter, if you're listening to this, and I know I can reach out to him on Facebook or whatever. Love to have you on the podcast because you just bring so much from so many different.
Scooter would be a whole show in itself.
No, exactly.
Insane,
Love to have him on because that guy can run us through his career and he's ridden everything.
Yeah, him and Tim. Tim's a good all around.
Yeah, I feel like we kind of glossed over Tim a little bit there. Like we need to give Tim his due. Like you kind of touched on the fact, not a knock on Tim. He's a big dude.
Tim's legit.
He'd go out and put it on a podium in a Moto America race. I mean, this guy, and that's not on a factory bike. At all. That's on a bike that Tim goes and gets off the showroom floor and builds up himself. And he's out there racing against, what do you weigh, Jake?
150.
Yeah, he's out there racing against guys Jake's size, and he's got to buy a hundo, and he's still putting it to him. It's crazy.
Yeah, Tim is super, he's just super knowledgeable on the sport, too. Back, mid 2000s, he worked for my dad, and I know he was racing a lot then, and we'd go out and watch him at Summit, and we'd just watch him sweep up on those guys. I mean, I'd watch Tim; he'd be 3 corners ahead of those guys, just letting it eat. And it was really cool watching that. And I know Lance Collins, good friend of all of ours. Lance was working with Tim. Tim was doing a trackside tire program through Dunlop that was actually doing really well, and they were helping out, doing a lot of support. I know he's worked for Suzuki teams. Was it Vesra Suzuki possibly? And they were doing a lot of design. And Tim is a super knowledgeable guy in the sport and in general, and he's just one of the nicest guys you'll meet. I mean, I anytime I'm around Tim, I enjoy it. So he's super good to be around.
And whenever you have Lance on, Lance has no shy of Tim Beeman surfer stories. So.
No, we're going to have Lance on. It's probably going to be a difficult episode because we're planning on having Lance and Dave on at the same time since they're both former parts guys, both former very good parts counter guys, but that one could go off the rails. Brian and I got to be on our A game for that.
Oh, man, so. Lance and Dave, the story. I got a quick Lance story real quick.
Go ahead.
So back in the day, I remember I had to be young. It was still at the original shop, so I was probably 5 or 6 years old. I remember my dad comes up to me and said, hey, bud, this isn't my shop. This is all yours. This is all your shop. All these bikes, everything, this is yours. So I'm like, oh, wow, I own this place. Okay. So I go up to Lance one day, and I'm like, after my dad told us I'm all big head, I'm like, Lance, you're fired. Get out of here. And, we go back. We talk about this years later. Obviously it was a joke, but for a second, like no lie, Lance thought I was being serious there for a second. That for some reason my dad sent his 6-year-old son over here to let him off easy because
you wouldn't yell back.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the biggest events in sports history was the Lance Collins versus Luke Ross crutch race at Shenandoah Honda.
Yeah, that's another good one in itself too. Lance and me had broken legs at the same time. I was probably 7. I broke my leg. I was doing a no-footer on this tabletop at our old house. Broke my leg. The week prior, Lance had broken his leg up at Tomahawk because he landed on somebody or something crazy. And so, yeah, that was the fun one. We did the ultimate crutch race.
So who won?
Oh, me, of course.
Oh, okay.
I smoked him. I had that 7-year-old energy going big time. I could fly on those crutches.
Yeah, we'll have to ask Lance if he has the same story on that race.
That tabletop, it wasn't very dangerous, but Luke and I both got hurt. I broke my arm we both got our first broken bones off that jump. I broke my arm. Oh, that was horrible. I didn't, my mom was having some sort of party that night, had a bunch of friends
So you
over.
guys did it at the same time?
No.
Okay.
We did actually land on each other off of that once, but
like a year apart.
Yeah, it was real close to a year apart, but no, that jump was pretty safe, but we got hurt on it. And, my mom was having a party or something. And so what my dad did was, as soon as you'd walk in the door, there was a staircase that would take us up to our playroom. And so you'd walk in the door and he snuck me up there and, wrapped my arm in ace bandage. I was crying on the couch watching Family Guy, saying, it's not broken. I don't want to go to the hospital. And my dad took me. It wasn't a horrible break, but yeah, that was a good time. First broken bone.
Yeah, sounds like it. So now we'll add a little bit more drama in this. So who's faster between the two of you?
It depends on the day, but I think I am.
No. My track record is way better than him. Of course, I'm older, but I think I still got him covered. Now, there was one day, he beat me at the Rattlesnake last year, National Enduro. He did beat me there.
Yeah, I was watching the results on that.
I had a little bit of an off day. He's beat me in, very rarely. He beat me in, one cross test at a full gas one time. But the one day where I legit thought that he was going to beat me heads up, because I was riding really good that day, was at the Green Marble Enduro last year. I was riding good. I was riding all I could. And every test he was turning out faster.
So just to be fair, before you take it, Jake, on those instances you pointed out, what bike were you on?
That one, so the National Enduro, I was on my 350, and then the full gas, I was on my 350. But we did a switcheroo. I did ride the 252 stroke at that Enduro last year.
I just want to make sure you guys were on somewhat equal footing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I tend to excel at enduros, a traditional enduro, 6 test enduro or so. And for some reason, the Rattlesnake, I just always click with it. And that last year, I struggled a lot with racing because I was coming back from a shoulder operation, and that was, I was training a lot over summer. I didn't really have schoolwork on the table, so I had a lot more free time, and I was training a lot and had a lot of fun. So I went out there and just rode, and I paced off of Corey Buttrick that day and put forth an okay result. And then a couple weeks later, Luke is there whining, oh man, Jake's on that 252 stroke. He's going so much faster. He's got the advantage. It runs so well. So my dad gave me the opportunity to ride 2020 250 XC TPI, and I never spent any time on that. And personally, at that point, I wasn't a huge fan of the TPIs. We were still testing with them. So I go into this race because it was just a local enduro on a bike I'd never ridden before, and I got pretty comfortable. I was just cruising along, having a good day, and dropping some good scores. And came down to one of the last tests. I smashed the pipe in horribly, but Luke ended up getting me. So. But, I mean, there's a couple rare occasions where I pull one out.
Smashing the pipe is a whole lot different than smashing the frame, which one of our interviewees did out at Boyer Farm one weekend.
Dude, but he choked that day. He choked big time. But, yeah, the frame thing, that's a story in itself.
And then you raced it a couple more times like that, didn't you?
I did, yeah. You know how much work it is to switch over a frame? You literally have to switch everything over.
I know how much work it actually was, and we won't get into that.
No, I took a pry bar to it so I could put it out a little bit so I could still put my skid plate on and raced it a few more weeks like that.
Good enough, right?
Good enough, exactly.
So another question I have for you is, especially coming up for youth racers, I think so many parents bring their kids and they think that they just got to run a championship. It's all about getting those number one plates up there, and that kind of solidifies you as a fast rider. You guys both are high-level expert riders, and you didn't necessarily chase a ton of championships growing up. So kind of talk about that thought process and how you guys still got super fast.
Well, in the beginning, that's what it was about. It was just going to certain races and having fun. And, when we first started taking it more serious, basically when we started running the GNCCs, those 3 years that we ran them, that was the only few years that we actually did run a series. Mainly we did the ECA a few times, but the main reason behind that is just because you get tired of it. You have a certain structure of every race weekend you have to go to. Oh, I got to go this weekend to this race, this weekend to that race. But not every race on every schedule is a good track either. I'm, like Jake had mentioned earlier, I'm all about to have fun. I didn't start this because I wanted to make it a living or make it, the main thing that I do. I wanted to have fun. So when I go out to do these races, I want to go to the fun ones and go to some I enjoy. I'm not going to go waste my money on something that I'm going to hate or not enjoy. You know, it's just not me.
That's such great advice, because I think so many people get sucked into that series, and maybe the series has 75% of the races are great, but you're wasting 25% of your time taking yourself or your kid to a race that they don't like. They're just doing it to check off that championship point. So yeah, I think like you said, it's all about having fun.
Exactly. I mean, sometimes, you know, it's cool to go like midweek, maybe on Wednesday, you decide, hey, they're having a race here this weekend. Let's just go hit this up. You know what I mean? Like, that's honestly, nowadays, that's how most of our decisions are.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, I put forth a lot of effort into my schoolwork and maintaining my grades, and it was if I had something to do, or if I was pushing it to the limit and I just, you know, wanted to take the weekend and go ride or go have fun, like I didn't have to go race, or I didn't have to push myself to make the deadline for a race. And I think it was just, it's good to go get some expertise in a couple different disciplines and face a couple of different riders, because you go to, I mean, I gotta, you know, whim up my ass to go race GNCCs last year, a few of them, and I'd show up and honestly get smoked. I was in horrible shape because I was recovering from a shoulder surgery. I'd just show up and I'd get smoked, but I was having fun, and that was all that mattered. But you know, I'd go to some other different formats of racing, and a couple of the guys that I was facing at the GNCCs, I would perform well against them or perform better than them, and it just depends on the format for me. I prefer a traditional enduro. It's just, I think I said that earlier. It's something that I always enjoyed. I know my dad raced them a lot, and that part of, you know, I always liked hearing his old enduro stories, and I think enduros, you know, it's kind of dying in America right now, because there's this big debate on, you know, sticking with the timekeeping format, which is a lot more challenging. It's technical. It's you know, you have to be smart about making sure you make the checks on time, or not too early, not too late. Whereas, you know, the new school riders, they like the start control. So I like a start control where you show up to that line and you twist the throttle and you take off, but it's still the enduro has always appealed to me, because I don't know, they weren't as sketchy as I felt like I have to lay it on the line like I would for a GNCC or a sprint enduro. You know, pushing the edge is different in all sorts of different disciplines, and finding the one that suits you best. You know, my advice is go to a couple different series, travel around, go to different local series, you know, travel, hit up some different local series in the South and the North. I mean, you're going to find that each place is different, each track's different, competition's different. I mean, you might go to a local series and race someone that gets smoked at nationals, and they're the man at the local series. I mean, they're kicking your butt. So, I mean, it's cool just kind of traveling around and checking out different stuff and seeing different cultures of motorcycle racing in the U.S. or in different formats and stuff. So
yeah, that's great, right? Great advice. So speaking of kind of the different formats, what do you guys find as kind of the most fun places that you've been?
Yeah, he mentioned he likes the national enduro format. I'm more of like the sprint enduro guy. I always look, you know, obviously with my dad doing ISDE when we were younger, that was all I ever wanted to do, was that type of racing, was the sprint enduro format. So when Full Gas started up that series a few years ago, I've loved it ever since. I'm all about just twisting it for a few minutes, going out, and then you get to go back to the truck and hang out for a little bit. It gets super stressful at times, especially if you're running within a few seconds or milliseconds of somebody throughout the day. But it's really cool that with the Full Gases, you know, I can go lay it down, especially in a grass track, for a few minutes at a time, and then when I'm feeling on and I can lay out one really good, I go back and look at the results, and you can see your name up there with some of the top guys, which is pretty cool, where you wouldn't see that at like a GNCC or something, where there is no way I could ever run with any of those guys at a GNCC at any point. So that's cool to see that, you know, especially like that one we had out there at the farm one year. That was awesome. That was probably without a doubt one of my favorite races ever, was the Full Gas that got hosted at your guys' property. That was amazing.
Yeah, we got blessed with kind of like the perfect weather. We had a bunch of rain and the farm just soaked it up like a sponge. So Saturday especially was just chocolate brownie dirt.
Hero dirt. And that's the thing, like I know we don't have many like local races around here. Like a local for us
we're
is like,
typically traveling a couple of hours.
2 hours, you know. So having a race like that was only like 45 minutes away was incredible. A national level race like that. And it showed, you know, when you get to go out and race against those guys in your backyard. You know, I'd never really had that before. So when I went out the first few tests and was able to put some times up against those guys, when you know, that was awesome. That whole weekend was
Brian,
just
when
incredible.
we get back out there for a full gas?
Hopefully soon. We just love having people out there. I mean, it's so exciting to just watch some of the top level riders, you know, on your farm, you know. So it's just we love hosting those kinds of things, and we definitely hope to get back in the near future.
Yeah, work through some insurance issues and some other stuff. It's all legal.
Well, not only that was the ISDE qualifier too that year. So that just worked out perfect.
Oh yeah.
You know, we were able to go out and have some of the, not only just the regular full gas racers, that was without a doubt one of the most stacked full gases.
Was
I've
that
ever
when
been to.
you qualified?
Yeah,
was that
I qualified that year.
So maybe that's a good transition into our ISDE question.
Yeah, we can jump forward to that. Luke, and we'll talk to Jake here in a minute too. You qualified for ISDE. For those listening that may not have a race background, ISDE is International 6-Day Enduro. It's been held for God knows how many years now. There are multiple teams we send over, but you represented Team USA as correct?
The club team.
Club team.
Yeah.
And kind of walk us through your experience on that. I guess spoiler alert, won the gold medal.
Yeah, that was incredible. That's definitely my most
And where
pride accolade
was it
up to
in?
this point.
It's on my shirt.
Spain. It was in northern Spain that year. Yeah. Well, obviously, it just was one of those things that kind of worked out. Like you said, the qualifier ended up being at their property, so I was like, well, screw it. You know, I just turned 16 that year, and the qualifier was in a good place. I signed up. I was like, I'll see how I do against those guys. You know, see if I can figure it out. And qualified. They took the top 7 that year, and I ended up being able to qualify 5th. So they were able to take me that year. So whenever I went, the process to get over there is a lot more complicated than people think. You know, they think it's just, you qualify and go over and race in Europe. You know, some people, you know, from the outside, but it's a lot of work. It took a lot of fundraising efforts because it's not cheap to go over there, especially when you go over with Team USA.
And how early you have to get a bike shipped over there, and that's not like you're shipping it a week before the race.
No, it was the event was in October, and I had to ship the bike over by like middle of August or something. I think I went back to school that week. Like, so it was crazy, the fact that we were doing that. And so that's the other problem I have. Like, whenever you were talking earlier about running race series and stuff. I don't know how some of the people that qualify for that event still run like full-time race series, because it was a full-time job getting over there that year.
Well, getting the bike ready, and then if you think about it, how long that is, a couple months before the race, that's kind of your prime time for training.
Oh, yeah.
And so you need another bike. You got to be prepping for your body to get ready for 6 days of long mileage.
Yeah, well, between the riding and then you have to work on your own bike. Nobody's allowed to touch your bike. The mechanics, the rider has to do all their own bike maintenance. So I was trying to become the best all-around rider, mechanic, tire changer, you know, because you only got 15 minutes at the end of the day to change your tires, and then only a few minutes at each service check. So I was trying to figure that out the best I could. It was a lot to take in when I was 16, but I had a lot of confidence in my riding, and I've always been more of like a critical thinking rider. Like I more think before I do something. So I feel like that helped me out a lot, being smart for all 6 days. So yeah, when we got over there, it was really cool. You know, that was the one cool thing being about part of Team USA, was that was one of the times I felt like a full-on factory rider, because once you pay their fee, and like it's a full support rig the whole time you're over there. So that was the really cool part. Once the racing started, it was really cool just getting to race in another country, and doing the riding was epic. Like, I mean, we were riding 200 some miles a day. The first day was hard. I literally thought that I wasn't even going to make it through the rest of the week. That was the most riding I've ever done in my whole life. I literally could not pull in my clutch at the end of the day. I remember riding the last test, because the last test was at the Parc Fermé, like where the paddock and everything. I literally rode 3 fingers on my clutch the whole time. My hands were so dead I could barely hold on. And then I'm like, well, shoot, I still got to go change tires after this. So adrenaline, of course, kicked in. I was able to do it. And honestly, the week got easier. You know, the more we rode it, the first 2 days were miserable. It was like stupid dusty, like the worst dust I've probably ever ridden in my life. I remember going up the mountains, and there was, you know how like when you go into a mud race and it's like full on like crazy mud holes like everywhere. There was literally,
I know what that's like.
There was literally these dust ruts that would literally sink you all the way up into the tank and would just like throw dust like all in your face. I'd never seen anything like that in my life.
And you got to worry about keeping that bike running too.
Of course, yeah.
Section.
I mean, I had a lot of confidence in my bike because my dad and I and Jake, we put a lot of effort into
He tore the thing down to the frame, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Rewired the
motor,
entire
everything.
harness, like everything.
Yeah, we had 70 hours in that bike and just prep before we even went over there. And that's not even the stuff, you know, once we bolted it on and got it ready when we first got over there. So yeah, actually what ended up helping was it rained that week. So day 3 through 6 was just epic. I remember the 4th day was my best day. I turned all week. I was trying to, you know, put in top times, and there was this cross test. I remember I was top 100 in, which was pretty awesome. You know, 600 some riders in the event. Yeah. That was incredible.
Well, top 100 in the world.
Yeah, top 100 in the world. And I was, I think I got like 19th overall club rider that test, and I was second American. Like Josh Toth was the only one that beat me, which, you know, he's factory KTM now. Yeah. So I beat, you know, I don't like to brag on myself, but it was just cool to see. Like Hepler was on the team that year. Brock Hepler, former factory motocross racer. Ben Kelly, you know, a bunch of the West Coast guys. Jimmy Jarrett. There's so many fast guys on the club teams that year. So, you know, I felt for the majority of the week I was honestly one of the slower guys because the club teams were so stacked that year. But yeah, and then just rode the wave out the rest of the week, finished, and next thing you know, we had a gold medal. It was an incredible experience. I really wish that I get the opportunity to go back and do it again. I recommend if anybody gets the chance to go try it. You know, it's an expensive endeavor for sure, but
hey, bringing home that gold medal made it all worth it.
Oh yeah.
You just got to buy a Luke Ross T-shirt to help support the cause. So, yeah. Jake, you went over there too. You were there more as support. Maybe we touch. I mean, are you going to qualify at some point? I mean, I feel like you have to. It's part of the family.
Yeah, I mean, I got to keep the family tradition going. We got 2 helmets in the house right now. We need a 3rd.
Any chance you guys would ride on the same team together at some point?
If someone's fronting the bill, sure.
That is a big bill to pay.
Yeah.
Two-Wheeled Rider Podcast.
Yeah, go to Patreon and just write in Ross Boys ISDE support.
Yeah,
we'll put it all towards that.
We'll need like, I don't know, if someone wants to donate $30,000 or so for the podcast, I think that'll get Luke and I both over there.
Make it 35. Patreon will take their fees, or PayPal.
Yeah, plus we need a little extra to buy a 4th mic.
Good point.
But it's actually a really cool experience. It's nothing, you know, you almost feel like you're on an Olympic team or something. For me, I was pretty much a little kid. I was 14 years old. I turned 15 while I was over there. We went to the grocery store right next door and bought a weird chocolate Spanish cake and celebrated my birthday with my dad, Luke, and for anyone listening that's an old school enduro racer, the legend himself, Bob Aganis. Yeah, Brian.
Yeah, I got some good stories there.
Yeah. Need to get him on here.
It'll be 4 hours.
Yeah, it'll be longer than that. Funny story about that. We arrive in Spain, right? I forget the luggage at the airport, but we arrive. We show up we were in Logroño, and we're driving down the street. Who else do we see but Bob Aganis walking down the street with a telepizza at 11:30 at night? So Bob was right down the road from us, but no, it was a really cool experience. I did some videography work, you know, documenting Luke's whole experience, and I've always kind of been into the video stuff. I always thought it was really fun to throw stuff together, edit it. You know, it's like you know how I see dirt bikes and motorcycle racing. And so I did a whole documentation of Luke, but at the same time, I mean, I was putting forth a lot of work helping organize all that up. I mean, I put forth just as much effort on the bike as he and my dad did, and you know, it's crazy seeing you put 70 hours or so into a bike, and then you go out and ride it for 30 minutes and then throw it in a crate, you know? So it's a crazy experience over there. The whole Team USA almost feels like a family that week. You're all staying in the same hotel, chilling out at the lobby. Everyone's at the same restaurant all week. So you get really close with the people. You have a lot of conversations. It's a really cool experience, and it's awesome seeing the world-class riders race. And I had to work one day, and I was there with all the factory mechanics just hanging out in one of the service checks. So it was pretty neat. Like, I know Ben Kelly had some issues one day, and his throttle housing broke, or I believe, and so he was, you know, getting out of there, and he forgot his gloves, and he still had about half of a day to ride. You can't ride 6 days without gloves. He would have been miserable. So I had to sprint past the check, you know, and pretty much throw his gloves about 15 feet away from his bike. Because, you know, I didn't want him to get docked or anything. So that was, you know, and it's cool. Like, when a rider has an issue like that, Ben wasn't a factory rider at the time. Ben was just riding under the Trail Jesters name. And the Trail Jesters has also done an amazing job for the ISDE. Ross Mallory is a really, really great guy. He loves the sport. And he was a really awesome person to meet while I was over there. So I was just at the service check with them, and he had an issue, and it's cool seeing the factory mechanics all come together to help those club riders. So the experience it's stressful even for you to just watch it there. So my dad and I rode around it was a manual Volkswagen diesel, and that thing started running weird by the end of the week. I mean, my dad, he's an aggressive driver. It was not as fast at the sixth day as it was the first. I think he got pulled over maybe 2 or 3 times. And he actually, before we left, he had to drive an hour to Pamplona, which was, you know, the larger city around there. That's where they do one of the running of the bulls. Yeah. And he had to drive an hour to Pamplona to go to traffic court.
Oh my
John's in town for a week, and he's already going to traffic.
Oh yeah,
court.
he got pulled over like right next to the track in a roundabout, and so everyone's riding by on their bikes, and like they're coming into the paddock later and talking to Luke and I, like, "Hey, is your dad okay? I saw him. He had like 8 cops by him, and he had a motorcycle endorsement on his driver's license. So the Spanish police thought, oh no, he can only ride motorcycles with this license. Yeah, wow. You know, because even his international license was stamped with the motorcycle endorsement. So yeah, that was a really fun experience. Luke and I were just hanging out all day at the hotel with, you know, while my dad was down having to pay fines, and I think they mailed him more to pay. If the Spanish police are listening, I don't know if he paid them.
We don't get a lot of listens in Spain, so we'll be okay. We do get some listens in Europe. So you guys have been around motorcycles for a long time, but compared to the two of us, you guys are still on the younger side of things. I think you and I can both speak to this. You know, I brought Noah out to the Ross compound plenty of times to ride with you guys. Normally, it always ends up in let's go do some hill climbs. But you guys have been out to the farm, and it just seems like the kids just flock to you two guys.
Well, it's cool
because they want to learn to ride. So, number one, why is that? And number two, you know, how are you guys so good with kids and teaching them how to get better on motorcycles?
Well, the cool thing was we were in that. That was us at one point. You know, looking up and riding with a bunch of older guys then, you know, that was the cool part about all that. So the biggest thing for us was whenever we were coming up was my dad always made us do hill climbs and practice stuff that we were screwing up on so we could get better. We rode in all conditions, whether it was raining, snowing, sleeting, whatever. We were riding, you know, so he made us do all that. And so a lot of it was just learning the fundamentals at a young age. And I kind of try to teach the kids, like your guys' kids, whatever I was taught and what worked for Jake and I, which a lot of it was climbing hill climbs, dragging your bike down the hill when you didn't make it, and just being aggressive. When you got to make it up a hill, you got to be aggressive. So that translated into other things, and then moving on from, just the learning the fundamentals and stuff when we were at our compound and our farm and stuff growing up, a lot of it transferred into the racing. When we started racing, when we were about 10, 11 years old, we sucked. Like, straight up, we were horrible. I remember my first off-road race was Snowshoe GNCC. It was on a KX65. I thought I was going to go up there. I was like feeling great. I was like the coolest guy out there. I got dead last in the 65, 10, 11 class. 2 years later, that's the comparison I always like to show from how far both of us were able to come in a short time from learning, and just the progression that we got was 2 years later. I got, I think, second in the super mini class, and then I think I was fifth overall. So it's a big progression in just a short amount of time.
Yeah, especially at the GNCC level.
Yeah, and that's another thing I like, which the Zacchanicus kids, they just kind of took that up, and I think that helped them out, was racing GNCC, because that's the fastest kids in the country. If you have the opportunity to do it, go do it, because it helped Jake and I out so much. I remember I think it was the 2011 year, I was going from finishing like dead last still in like the 85 class and struggling really bad. One summer of just riding and going to the local races and stuff like that. Next thing you know, we go to Unadilla and I'm like battling for the lead. It was insane, the crazy improvements that I made in just that short amount of time. So I like to vocalize, going about and racing the GNCCs if you have the time and the money, because it really does make a difference over the years.
I think Buddy just woke up over there. He just woke himself up.
He has a hard time getting comfortable. He always does that shit,
Yeah, that nap looked good, though.
It did look good.
But, yeah, I think that kind of helps, I think, a lot of your knowledge and race experience, and not being that far removed from being in that youth program. You're able to kind of pass that on to the kids.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like yesterday I was, on super minis racing GNCCs, 85s, all that stuff. It just, it goes by fast.
And you guys have a connection with the kids that, they don't want to listen to their dads.
Of course not.
They just don't.
I sure as hell don't want to listen to mine half the time.
I mean, we can say the same things you guys say, but they listen to you. And to be fair, you guys are great with the kids, and you probably push them as harder than what we do, because I've seen the hill. Listen, there's that famous picture of Noah going across that creek and his bike's like this. He wasn't upset about it. Like, most kids would get their bikes stuck in the mud and think they're in trouble, or I've done something wrong, or I got to dig it out and this sucks. And he's like, no, giving it a thumbs up. And then he's trying to ride up the hill after that.
Well,
so
on the flip side, I've seen him get pretty pissed off too. I'm like,
no,
dude, you gotta calm down. You gotta calm down a little bit, man.
He's calmed down just a tad. Now he looks at these things more so as a challenge versus something he's going to get upset about. So.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is don't get frustrated. You're going to make mistakes. And, it happens still to me today. I get mad if I can't hit something right or make a mistake doing something. But then when you hit it perfect, it's like, it's just ear to ear grin. It's
awesome. You just got hit 1 out of 10 times.
Yeah,
It's that one you're going to remember.
Yeah,
so.
just like Jake said, you got to take 10 videos, and then the best one you pull out, that's the one you post on social media, obviously.
Exactly. Yep. So, Jake, we're going to flip over to you for a minute. I mean, obviously we know Ride on Moto is no longer open, but what are you guys doing now in to help the motorcycle community? What is it you kind of want to talk about? We'll give you a chance to plug some stuff here.
Yeah, so we're kind of taking a new approach at things. We've started it's mobile repair, and unfortunately, due to the current circumstances with COVID, it's more of pickup and delivery. And so we've started. My father and I are doing a business called Race ADV, and our business model has so far been kind of just like making a bike that's right for you. And, whether that be a guy going out and that's doing big adventure rides, helping them get comfortable, or someone that's racing at the top level. So we try to do it all. And it's kind of like boutique experience, not boutique, but like catering to you. You know, whatever you want, we try to help you find that. And we try to teach people, you know, what, you know, to kind of look away from the internet. Stop reading the internet. So many people read it. They get
Brian,
sucked into
I think he's talking about forums.
Forums.
No. Forums are a big no. Forums are when people, you know,
Don't have any friends to talk to.
yeah, no, you don't. You never see the people that know how to work on stuff or know how to tune stuff typing because they don't have the time.
Exactly.
And so we'll set up, you know, in many circumstances, we've set up bikes beautifully for people. Some of the best running bikes. They go home. What do? They start reading on the forums, reading this, reading that. They tinker with it. They come back to us. Did this. Why? You know, they get all mad at us. We said, well, wait a second. What'd you do when you went home? You know? Oh, I read this here and did
This
this.
guy with 10,000 posts said that I should do this to my bike.
Yeah, and then it's like we end up reverting everything they just did, and they're tickled with the bikes again. So it's been a good experience, and I really enjoy working with my dad with it. It's race ADV. So, you know, we've got race and we've got adventure, you know, the trail riders, the big adventure riders like yourself. I mean, I've you know, the setup doesn't just go beyond racing. I mean, if you're going to get set up for any riding you're doing, it's important. You know, a lot of guys with adventure bikes just buy their bikes and they go ride with all the stock parts, and, you know, they don't realize that you can set those things up to be a more comfortable, more aggressive, or more laid back ride.
It depends on the type of riding you want to do. I mean, if you want to go out and do aggressive off-road riding, there's ways to set the bike up that way. If you want to go out and put 600 miles in a day, there's ways to make it more comfortable to accomplish those types of rides.
Yeah, and the customization is so important. I don't care what level you're at or what you want to do. You know, to your point, I think that's what's so cool about what you guys are doing is the only people that don't want their bike different are the ones that haven't ridden one that's been set up right. Mm-hmm. I think, you know, I did the same thing. I enjoyed my bike. I hopped on one of your bikes out at the farm, and I came back and I said, just take my bike home and do whatever the suspension is on this, because it was just perfect. And I liked my bike before, but when you finally ride a bike that's set up the way it is, and I think that's what you guys are doing. You're understanding what do you want to do with the bike? What are you going to use it for? And we'll set it up for you, whether you're racing it or just a trail rider. That bike can be set up to be even better, and you'll enjoy riding even more.
Yeah, and my dad, you know, he's really taught me how to kind of like look at people and understand their background and what they want as a rider, and understand their riding style, maybe, you know. And so we've worked hard at fine-tuning things, and, you know, if you're not satisfied with your bike, we'll invite you to come out to our farm and we'll tune it for you. We'll help you out as much until we get that bike dialed for you, until you're super content.
So, Jake, how do people get a hold of you?
You can reach us, shoot us a message, Facebook. We're still working on setting up our website and a couple other, give us a Facebook message or
so what's the Facebook handle? And I'm going to link all this down in the show notes and on the YouTube video.
Give us a Facebook message, my dad, John Ross, or me, Jake Ross, or give us an Instagram message. My handle is at Jake Ross 392, and my dad's is at John Ross 330. And then, of course, if you guys have our number, just don't be afraid to give us a call. I know we've been quiet. We kind of keep on the down low, but we're doing stuff. We're busy. We're trying to stay active.
I've been out there quite a few weekends. You guys have bikes of all different manufacturers out there in the shop, of all different styles, whether it's a dirt bike, enduro bike, adventure bike, street bike. It doesn't matter. Like, they're all out there.
And so we're trying to, we're mobile, but with the current situation with COVID-19, we've become a lot more pickup and delivery. But yeah, it's just a really cool experience to be working with my dad and gain a lot of his knowledge, and it's kind of passed through me, and it's him passing me the torch, and me learning a lot of cool setup techniques, engine techniques, just working on stuff in general. I mean, I spent 3 months, we just built a really cool Project 250 F. So my personal bike is a 2019 KTM 250 SXF that is hand built by my dad and me, and we spent 3 months staring at that engine, and now I can visualize that bike in my head and take it all apart, and the process of how an engine works and how different components are working. It all kind of clicks, and you understand tunability and performance and just how to make stuff better. And he's started doing some more engine work and tuning and motor building, so it's been a great opportunity working with him. And working with your dad, it can be tough. You guys, we butt heads a lot, but we've actually, our relationship has really improved because we've learned, all right, we butt heads, but let's get over it. Let's get over it in 5 minutes and get back to work and work together hard. We're both really similar. We're both super technical. We think hard about things, and it's just really fun working together. I'm enjoying this opportunity so much, and we're looking to do some trackside support once racing starts back up. We're going to be at all the SXCS rounds, and I think we're going to try to put forth some sponsorship, maybe like some gas cards or something. We're just trying to get people share our love for tuning and enjoyment of racing motorcycles and just being comfortable with your bike, because the number one thing we emphasize is safety. I mean, that is the number one thing in this any type of motorcycle riding is safety. So that's a big emphasis of ours, in making the bike safe for you and comfortable for you to ride on.
Luke, anything you need to plug other than your Tinder account? Unless you're still seeing your girlfriend right now, and then she's going to smack me next time I see her.
Nah, I still got my girlfriend.
Okay,
so
all right.
no Tinder accounts. Just their business, help them out, support them. Speaking of, that was, this whole COVID-19 thing has been a tad bit of a blessing, because both of me and him were doing a lot of work to our bikes, between just trying to get that comfortable feel again. We both got new bikes this year. I got 250 XC,
The guys that never got new bikes before both got new bikes.
Actually, they're used.
How old are they again?
2019.
Yeah, it's still a couple years older or a couple years newer than mine. I'm riding Jake's bike from 2017.
Hey, we're hustlers, all right?
All right, I got you.
Gotta hustle that shit, Dad, he built me the other day. We went to go, he rebuilt my shock for me, did a whole cool component system on that. We went to go set the sag on it and saw that the forks were having stick in them. So he's just, I'll pull the forks apart, rebuild them for you. So he just rebuilds the forks, oh yeah, no big deal, Gets them going. They were perfect, that's just the stuff that he does. He built me a custom silencer for the bike. We had a bunch of old parts laying around, and he was taking the circular saw to the thing because he wanted to cut it shorter, and then just built a bunch of parts just of old silencer parts he had, rips.
If people were to see how often a circular saw, hammer, tools like that are used in the back of a motorcycle shop, they would not believe it.
Yeah, you want to talk about essential. Those are essential.
Yeah, I kind of have to tell people, hey, I don't really want you here working on my bike, because when the hammer comes out, they freak out. And unfortunately, the hammer has to come out more than you like to talk about
for
it
sure.
and admit. And I'm sure, you make repair, service videos.
I don't always show when the hammer comes out.
Yeah.
I don't want to freak people out.
And so I've had, sometimes you'll have a line dangling or something, and someone's like, oh, that's going to damage it, whatever. And I'm being as gentle as I can while still trying to make sure I can adequately work on your bike and make sure the job is correct.
And there is a fact, we were talking about this off camera earlier, there's a factory service manual. I put a video out, I think it came out on Monday when we were recording this, of how to change the coolant on one of the adventure bikes. And it says, elevate the front wheel 20 inches. I mean, if you want to, you can, or you can just do it my way of fill the thing up, run it through with the radiator cap remove, burp it, and then properly fill up the radiator at that point. I'd rather not let my bike fall over on its side. Thank you, KTM, for your suggestion. Just like setting the cam chain tensioners with their method on that, where your dad was like, just throw it in a vise and here's how you set it, which is much easier.
You telling me you didn't use the forum, man? That's how everybody does their work nowadays, man.
I'm sure I get roasted on forums all the time, but that's the cool thing because we have this podcast and we can roast forums whenever we want.
And, you know, I'm not going to say that the certified YouTube mechanic isn't a bad thing, but I've gone to a YouTube video for help before. Like I just replaced an axle in my van because my CV joint went out. Well, I watched a video because I wanted to see, before I went in there, I wanted to see what the assembly looked like. And it was hard for me to find a service man or a manual on it. It was hard for me to find a parts assembly on it. So yeah, a YouTube video might be helpful for you to study and look at how that bike comes apart. But don't take everything everyone says
as gospel.
Yeah,
you
because
can't.
Unless you're watching Back in the Garage, you can.
If you're watching Back in the Garage, I have access to some of the greatest experts in motorcycles. But so I do my videos for three reasons. One, they bring in some ad revenue. Two, to show people how to do things. But three, I recognize probably 90% of the people watching the videos are never going to do that job on their bike. So I want them to have the appreciation when they take their bike to the mechanic or the dealer of what's actually going on, the amount of work and effort that goes into it, so that they don't, why did I pay $1,000 for a valve job? Because I had to take all this crap off the bike. Like, it took time. It may not have costed me a single dollar in parts, but it's the amount of time.
Be sure to watch my Back in the Garage video where I teach everybody how to change a moose in the tire.
So
because it might be the greatest Back in the Garage video ever.
Okay, so to be fair, that video has a lot of views. Samantha Kilgore has said she'll come on and on the YouTube channel and change a tire using one of those Rabicondas. She'll probably get more views than you. Because, Luke, I've seen you and I've seen Samantha, and she's going to get more views.
Yeah, I will not disagree on that. I'm sure Roman, her husband, would definitely agree on that as well. But yeah, also be sure to check out where I took over your YouTube channel.
Yeah,
too.
you did that. You've been on there. We'll link, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, this corner, I'll link those said videos.
I'm no expert on this vlogging or
no, but that was good. You guys went down and did that full gas at on the golf course.
Yeah, it was fun.
That's the one we were talking about earlier that may be run in West Virginia later this month. I think we're pretty much go for that. So
that one's a blast too. It's cool getting to race on a golf course.
I've been there every time I see a golf course, I just want to run my rear tire down the middle of it.
I mean, I've been there a few years now, so like it's not as like. The novelty's not as there.
You want to go find another golf course to ride down?
Oh yeah, not some West Virginia hillbilly. It's not just a golf course. They have like mud bogs and motocross tracks, and it's like it's like the most redneck shit I've ever seen down there.
I think they have like an exotic animal, a personal exotic animal collection. I think they have zebras there or something.
Like Tiger King?
Yeah, kind of, but a little less sketchy than that.
I thought you were going to say exotic dancers, which would be more interesting.
All
right. Before we get too far off course, let's get close to wrapping this up. Jake, we think we're going back. We know we're going back to racing with certain series coming up in the next couple of weeks. Best case scenario, race plans for the rest of the season.
Well, per usual, I'll probably just bounce around. I got to get in shape. I haven't really been riding.
You look like you've really let yourself go.
Well, it's more the physical conditioning. It comes back pretty quickly, but you
need your Jufro back.
I do need the Jufro back. But no, I'll probably just bounce around a little bit. Maybe do definitely going to run all of the SXCS series. The tracks with those are phenomenal, and I really wish we could get a larger turnout, more riders there.
I think we'll start to see that. I honestly do. It might take another season or two, but they are some of the most fun tracks available to ride / race.
And, there's a great C turnout and amateur turnout, but when it comes to...
No kidding. I end up with like 40 people on my line. I need to get to the age of 40 just to have less competition.
Yeah, but when it comes to the expert and the A classes and AA, the last round, we were going at, there was 5 of us, or really 4, or, 6, I think there may have been 6 of us, but there was really 4 of us. We were going at each other's throats for, not that great of payout, which, I'm not in it for the payout, but it does make.
But you want that competition level.
Yeah. And it's nice if I don't have to go at someone's throat. We can just battle it out and have a little bit more fun for
I think we'll get to that. I mean, they do have some of the best layouts, some of the best tracks. It's just last year was the first year. It's an unproven series. I think this year, especially if they can get back earlier than some of the other regional series, we'll see it grow just because people want to throw a leg over a bike and come out and do some racing.
I know. I wish some faster people would show up to me because it's fun. But
yeah, because I'm tired of seeing you win.
Yeah, like the one day I was riding awesome and I wanted some competition, and Jake was riding like a total pussy, you know what I mean? Like, I literally smoked him by like 3 minutes that day, and it's like, really, man, you can go faster.
I guess I need to,
can go faster than that.
I guess I need to come out of retirement.
Well, it's usually just our friend Henry Szymanski, who is just scheduled.
That dude is crazy to watch, right?
He's being behind him is even worse because it's like you don't know what his next move is going to be. He'll see lines out there.
Henry's on the edge at all times.
And he's a phenomenal rider. I love riding with Henry, and but it's just like you got to be on your toes riding with him because you don't know what his next move is going to be. You don't know if he's going to slide the back end out and you're going to almost hit him or something. And being around Luke is always incredibly consistent. Super tough to race because he's a strong guy. He's in it to win it, and I'm there. I'll show up. The last couple of rounds I was riding at 125, and I was just wide open trying to go as fast as I could to keep up with them, but.
I feel like Luke's taking exception to that.
Yeah, he's
that as some sort of excuse.
No, he's got his head pretty big about that one.
No, Jake the last year, man, like he might be the guy that overthinks more things on a dirt bike than I know more than anybody. If he would just turn his brain off sometimes and just go ride like he knows how, he would do so much better than he actually does. He overthinks shit so heavy.
We can go down an entire rabbit hole on this.
Hey, we had to throw some shit talking in.
No, I agree. But
you got both of us here.
Brian, you good with this?
Yes, I'm good.
I can mute their mic if we need to. Listen, guys, we appreciate having you on. I think, listen, you shared a wealth of knowledge tonight. There was a lot of entertaining things said. I feel like we can probably have you back on at some point and cover totally different topics from a totally different perspective. I'm glad you guys enjoyed yourselves.
I wanted to do this since you brought the idea up to me, a few months ago. And, I'm a big podcast guy, a big avid podcast listener. So it's cool to actually be a part of one for once.
And I just like, talking to you guys. I've grown up around. I've known Brian since I was little, and I've known you since I was little, so it's just kind of cool talking to you guys. I feel like I'm sitting here in the room shooting the shit. I mean, we could have recorded a whole nother podcast while we were eating pizza in the kitchen.
Yeah, we're out there like downing some pizza, and we're like, we could have just recorded this, and it would have been just as good and just as knowledgeable.
I know. We probably didn't even cover like half the shit we could have.
We haven't. We've just scratched the surface, and that's the fun part. And what Jake just said, we're just sitting around having a conversation. We've got a few questions that, I don't want to say they're scripted. They're written down to keep us on course, but there's so many different things we can go over. And to be fair, probably half the stuff we talked about tonight isn't even on this question list. It's just we're sitting here talking about motorcycles, and I hope that comes across to our audience listening in. Hope they learned something. They had to be entertained. If we get Stu on here at some point, God, I'll get a couple of cases of Coors Light or
I want to be part of that. I want to be part of that show.
No, you can be on there. We'll make that work.
Everybody
even if we
loves
can't
that
get him in studio or we can't do it live out at the track or whatever, we can Skype him in, Bluetooth him in, whatever. Listen, of all the racing stuff going on right now, MotoGP is still up here. I want to know what's going to happen with it. Supercross is still up here. I want to know what Stu's showing up on next round because I know he's showing up on something. I know he's going to be racing again this season. It has to happen.
Mark.
Caleb Russell posted the video today, and he doesn't even know what's going on. So we'll see. So
we all love Stu. He'll figure himself out. He's a bad dude.
Listen, Caleb's retiring at the end of the year.
I know Caleb's a bad dude though too. He is a bad dude. He
Oh, yeah,
deserves
for
it
sure.
by all means.
For sure.
You know, you say Caleb's retired and the door is left open. There's a lot of good talent on that
No.
front line. I mean,
There is.
you know,
Thad's been out hurt this year.
but he's going to, anytime someone you know, a lot of times pro racers come back, they come back stronger. So it's
Yeah.
It's
And there's going to be young guys coming up too.
Yeah. So it's going to be a really cool battle next year.
It's going to be interesting. And if you're not on a Sherco, you got a chance to win.
2021 GNCC is going to be badass.
it's gonna
I
be
can't
awesome.
wait to watch it. It's going to be like Supercross was this year before the government shut everything down.
Yeah.
Supercross was badass.
I just want the last 7 rounds of Supercross run. I want
Closure.
I want to give Cooper Webb a fair shot at the title because
I think they
he
all
still
deserve
has
a fair shot. Kenny, he's killing it.
Kenny, Eli,
Tomac,
will
they're all
throw it
killing
away
it.
before it's over. Like it's just gonna happen.
Dude, that New Jersey race, we were both there that year. That was bullshit. That dude choked so bad that race.
Choke Mac.
I know.
Is that what
for
Johnny
real.
Hopper calls him?
Yep.
Choke Mac.
Yeah, and he's such a bad dude. So it's like
No, he's
I
and
don't
I've
get
met
it.
him before, and he's such. I mean, he's a personable guy. I have nothing against him.
And then
Other
I've seen Bud's Creek rides where he's totally torn everything apart and destroyed everybody.
Well,
you know what I
we
mean?
were down there last year. We stayed in my camper and watched him do the burnout when he won the championship.
it's
Like that was
crazy.
awesome. Before the season wrapped up,
For
he
real.
can ride. It's just when those bright lights turn on,
Oh my
everything
god!
seems to change. So
Never forget MetLife 17. Never forget it.
you can't. All right. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, considering that subscribe button. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, please give us a 5-star rating. If you're not going to give us a 5-star rating, just don't give us a rating at all because I don't want anything less than that. If you have any questions about anything Jake and Luke went over and you're watching on YouTube, please comment down in the comment section below. Either one of those two guys will chime in or I'll reach out to them and try to get some sort of answer for you. Otherwise, just email us at twowheeledrider.com@gmail.com. That is the number 2wheeledrider.com, all spelled out, @gmail.com. And Brian, listen, we're a little out of practice. It's been well over a month since we did this, but I had a good time tonight.
Oh, great time. Like you said earlier, it's just a bunch of friends talking motorcycles, and hopefully everyone learned something because I sure did.
Yeah, I did too. I already knew these two guys are way faster than I'll ever be, and they'll always be that way. But it was great to have you guys in studio tonight. Buddy, thank you so much for showing up tonight. Wish you the best. And as always, I am your host, Mario Orsini, joined by my co-host,
Brian Boyer.
and we'll talk to you again soon.